Achieving a SOC 2 attestation is a milestone, but sustaining it requires discipline, structure, and forward planning. The annual maintenance cycle ensures that controls remain effective and evidence stays current between audits. A successful SOC 2 program doesn't pause once the Type 2 report is issued. It evolves into a living assurance process supported by calendars, key risk indicators, KRIs, and continuous maturity tracking. The purpose of this cycle is to shift the organization from reactive audit preparation to proactive readiness. By embedding compliance activities into daily operations and maintaining oversight throughout the year, organizations reduce rework, avoid control drift, and reinforce customer trust through consistent evidence of operational excellence. The maintenance philosophy behind SOC 2 centers on continuity. Instead of viewing compliance as a once-a-year sprint, mature organizations adopt a continuous readiness mindset, where monitoring, reporting, and testing happen year-round. Integrating compliance activities into business-as-usual operations minimizes the risk of regression after attestation. Each quarter becomes an opportunity to measure, adjust, and improve control performance. Continuous readiness reduces stress leading up to the next audit, shortens auditor fieldwork, and ensures that the evidence repository is always current. The more compliance becomes part of everyday governance, the less it feels like an external imposition, and the more it becomes a natural extension of operational integrity. A compliance calendar serves as the operational anchor of this approach. It functions as both a schedule and a checklist, defining every recurring task by frequency, owner, and due date. Activities like quarterly access reviews, annual disaster recovery (DR) testing, and semi-annual policy reviews should appear as planned entries with automated reminders. Assigning clear ownership ensures accountability, while automation through GRC or ticketing systems prevents missed deadlines. Each task completion creates an audit-ready record, record-timed, validated, and linked to supporting evidence. By institutionalizing a compliance calendar, the organization eliminates ad hoc fire drills and replaces them with predictable, repeatable governance rhythms. Key risk indicators, KRIs, transform control monitoring from qualitative observation to quantitative measurement. These metrics capture the health of controls over time and act as early warning signals for risk deviation. Examples include access review completion rates, patch latency, percentage of open security findings, or incident closure times. Thresholds and escalation triggers should be defined for each KRI, enabling management to detect trends before they become compliance gaps. Monthly governance meetings should include a standing agenda to review KRI dashboards, assign action items, and document trend analysis. SOC 2's strength lies in evidence. KRIs make that evidence measurable, comparable, and actionable. Periodic evidence refresh cycles sustain audit readiness without overburdening teams. At least quarterly, new samples of access logs, change tickets, and incident records should be generated and archived in the evidence repository. Outdated artifacts from previous periods should be retired or moved to cold storage to prevent confusion. Evidence organization and access permissions should be validated regularly to ensure only authorized personnel can view sensitive materials. These refresh cycles keep documentation synchronized with operational activity, proving that controls remain in force throughout the audit period, not just at specific snapshots in time. Policies and documentation must also follow a consistent review cadence. Each major policy covering information security, access management, and incident response should be reviewed annually or whenever a significant organizational change occurs. Approval workflows, version histories, and publication records provide tangible audit proof. Updated policies should be distributed to all employees, ideally with acknowledgement tracking to confirm awareness. Version control systems or document management platforms maintain traceability for each revision, reinforcing the principle of continuous governance improvement. Rotating control testing across the year ensures comprehensive coverage without overloading teams. Instead of testing all controls immediately before the next audit, divide the environment into logical domains, such as access, operations, and development, and test one domain each quarter. This staggered approach confirms that controls operate effectively year-round while spreading testing effort evenly. Findings and lessons from these internal validations should feed back into readiness assessments, highlighting areas where automation, process clarity, or documentation improvements can reduce future effort. Vendor and subservice oversight also requires a recurring schedule. Each year, organizations should review updated SOC reports and bridge letters from critical providers, confirming that their audit coverage and control performance remain satisfactory. Risk tiers for vendors should be reassessed based on business impact and dependency. Due diligence documentation, including security questionnaires, contract reviews, and incident communication records, should be updated annually. Tracking renewals, contract expirations, and SLA metrics ensures external dependencies remain under control, aligning with SOC 2's requirements for third-party oversight. Training and awareness programs ensure that compliance doesn't remain confined to the risk team. Annual or semi-annual refresher training should reinforce updated policies, procedures, and lessons learned from incidents or audits. Role-specific sessions for control owners or engineers help align daily practices with SOC 2 requirements. Tracking training completion and performance scores demonstrates organizational commitment to competence and accountability. When every employee understands their role in maintaining compliance, SOC 2 evolves from a checklist exercise into a shared organizational habit. Metrics and dashboards are the heartbeat of continuous assurance. Centralized dashboards should display real-time control coverage, KRI trend lines, exception counts, and audit readiness scores. Visualizing data by domain, security, availability, confidentiality helps leadership identify strengths and weaknesses instantly. Trend analysis over time reveals whether improvements are sustained or slipping. Highlighting automation coverage ratios shows how technology investments contribute to maturity. Dashboards transform SOC 2 oversight from reactive reporting to continuous intelligence, giving executives confidence that compliance health is visible and manageable at all times. Quarterly continuous improvement reviews close the feedback loop. These retrospectives evaluate control performance, exception management, and audit findings to build a prioritized backlog of improvement initiatives. The focus should be on eliminating manual processes, expanding automation coverage, and strengthening evidence collection efficiency. Tracking closure rates transparently demonstrates accountability and supports governance reporting. This iterative improvement cycle converts compliance from a static deliverable into a dynamic quality assurance process, exactly what SOC 2 Type 2 is designed to reflect. Incident and exception trend analysis turns operational challenges into actionable insight. By aggregating quarterly RCA data, teams can identify recurring failure patterns, whether in access control, change management, or vendor communication. Adjusting risk ratings and remediation timelines based on these patterns helps align reality with policy. Linking these analyses to risk appetite thresholds ensures leadership remains informed about systemic risks before they escalate. SOC 2 compliance matures when every incident becomes a data point for organizational learning and future prevention, not just a resolved ticket. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Internal audits and self-testing form the backbone of continuous assurance. Midway through the audit cycle, organizations should perform internal audits that simulate the external examination process. These internal reviews validate whether controls continue to operate as designed and uncover any emerging weaknesses. Independence is key. Even if the same team executes both readiness and operational functions, testing should be reviewed by an uninvolved stakeholder or external readiness partner. Findings and corrective actions must be recorded with evidence of closure. Aligning the internal audit scope with the next external SOC 2 engagement ensures that any control gaps are remediated well before formal fieldwork, reducing risk of last-minute surprises and bolstering confidence with auditors. Budgeting and resourcing are essential to maintaining momentum. Audit renewal costs, readiness assessments, and tooling subscriptions should be forecast well in advance. Allocating funds for automation upgrades and new compliance integrations ensures that the SOC 2 program evolves alongside the business. Staffing needs, especially for evidence collection, remediation, and governance reporting, should be evaluated annually. Even in large organizations, the compliance team's workload often spikes around audit renewal, so early resourcing helps distribute the effort evenly. Securing executive approval for the compliance budget reinforces SOC 2's strategic importance and integrates it into broader financial planning, turning assurance into a managed investment rather than a reactive expense. Maturity scoring gives structure to program improvement. Organizations can evaluate maturity across 3 dimensions: people, process, and technology, using objective benchmarks. For people, assess training completion rates and security awareness metrics. For processes, evaluate documentation coverage, policy revision discipline, and KRI trends. For technology, measure automation coverage and evidence collection efficiency. Comparing these metrics year over year quantifies progress. Benchmarking against peers or established frameworks such as CMMI or the NIST cybersecurity framework adds context and aspiration. Publishing these results to leadership, along with a maturity roadmap, turns compliance into a measurable journey of continuous improvement rather than a repetitive cycle of attestation. Automation and continuous compliance monitoring, CCM, should expand every year as part of the maturity roadmap. Start by integrating additional controls into the automated monitoring system, especially those that were manual in prior audit cycles. As automation coverage grows, manual evidence collection and sampling tasks should steadily decrease. Improvements to data feeds and alert accuracy ensure that compliance signals reflect real conditions rather than outdated reports. Over time, automation dashboards evolve from static checklists into live representations of compliance health, helping both leadership and auditors see assurance as a real-time state. Measuring the ROI of automation through time saved and reduced human error underscores its value as a cornerstone of program sustainability. Cross-framework audit preparation maximizes efficiency by synchronizing multiple assurance efforts. Organizations often juggle SOC 2, ISO 27001, PCI DSS, or HIPAA assessments. Aligning audit calendars and evidence repositories allows shared controls to be tested once and reused across frameworks. Unifying testing efforts, such as combining internal control reviews or vendor assessments, reduces redundancy and audit fatigue. Maintaining a single control library mapped to multiple frameworks simplifies auditor walkthroughs and ensures consistency in language and scope. Documenting efficiencies gained, such as reduced duplicate evidence requests or overlapping test results, further demonstrates operational maturity and cost optimization. Leadership and board reporting ensure that SOC 2 remains visible at the highest levels. Quarterly executive summaries should distill the program's key metrics: KRI performance, open exceptions, incident trends, and automation progress. These reports should highlight major achievements, such as reduced remediation times or successful vendor renewals, while also acknowledging persistent risks. Presenting a maturity roadmap with defined milestones helps leadership visualize long-term growth in compliance capability. Including these updates in board or risk committee agendas reinforces accountability, aligns security governance with business strategy, and establishes SOC 2 as a permanent fixture in corporate oversight. Clear governance ownership keeps annual maintenance structured and predictable. A designated compliance or risk lead should oversee the calendar, coordinate activities, and ensure timely execution of recurring tasks. Maintaining a stakeholder directory listing control owners, reviewers, and escalation contacts simplifies communication during both internal and external audits. Governance procedures should specify escalation timelines for exceptions or overdue deliverables, ensuring accountability across all functions. Updating ownership lists after organizational changes prevents the all-too-common issue of orphaned controls. A well-defined governance structure transforms SOC 2 maintenance from a series of reminders into a sustainable operational discipline. Avoiding common pitfalls requires constant vigilance. Many organizations revert to treating SOC 2 as an annual event, scrambling to gather evidence only when auditors return. This reactive approach leads to outdated artifacts, missed documentation updates, and accumulated minor exceptions that compound over time. Others allow automation dashboards to drift, assuming continuous monitoring without verifying configuration accuracy. The remedy lies in consistent cadence, quarterly reviews, automated reminders, and proactive refresh cycles. By treating compliance as ongoing stewardship rather than an audit project, organizations maintain a steady state of readiness that minimizes disruption and reinforces trust. Metrics for success provide tangible indicators of a well-maintained SOC 2 program. A quarterly audit readiness score above 90% suggests that evidence is consistently up to date. Stable or improving KRI trend lines show that control health is being managed effectively. A measurable reduction in manual evidence collection tasks demonstrates automation ROI. Finally, faster turnaround times for auditor requests, often dropping from weeks to days, illustrate that the organization's compliance engine runs efficiently year-round. These metrics validate maturity and reinforce to leadership that investments in automation and governance are paying dividends. Embedding a continuous readiness culture cements SOC2 as a shared organizational responsibility. Including SOC metrics in departmental KPIs keeps compliance visible across teams. Recognizing and celebrating milestones, such as successful renewals or improved KRI scores, turns assurance achievements into morale boosters. Sharing progress updates with customers through newsletters or trust portals strengthens external confidence. When every employee understands how their daily actions contribute to audit success, SOC stops being a checkbox and becomes a source of pride. The program evolves naturally alongside business growth, proving that continuous compliance is a competitive advantage. The maturity progression of a SOC 2 program can be viewed as an evolution from reactive to predictive. Organizations start by maintaining compliance as a project focused on passing annual audits. The next stage integrates automated evidence collection and dashboarding, providing real-time visibility into control performance. Advanced maturity introduces predictive analytics that detect potential control failures before they occur, supported by adaptive governance models that evolve with business change. At full maturity, continuous assurance becomes a business differentiator, demonstrating to customers and regulators alike that trust is operationalized, not just promised. In conclusion, annual SOC 2 maintenance hinges on three pillars: structured calendars, measurable KRIs, and deliberate maturity tracking. Sustaining readiness requires planning, automation, and leadership engagement, ensuring controls remain effective long after the auditor leaves. The organizations that succeed treat SOC 2 not as an event, but as an ongoing cycle of improvement, supported by data, automation, and culture. By embedding these habits, compliance becomes self-sustaining, responsive, and value-driven. Looking forward, the next focus area explores how to translate SOC 2 outcomes into tangible business value, transforming continuous assurance into competitive differentiation and customer trust acceleration.